Well, this death investigation became a very controversial case back in December when the Brown County coroner ruled Zachary Goldson's death homicide. If Goldson didn't kill himself in his cell, then obviously someone in the jail did. Tonight we have new details that the coroner says is evidence this was not suicide, this was homicide. The estimates are around $1.5 million. Tracy Hunter has been embroiled in controversy since her name first appeared on the ballot back in November of 2010. Tonight, 1 week after her criminal trial ended, we're getting an idea of just how much her legal problems have cost you, the taxpayer. Scott Eaton is at the beginning of a 10-year prison sentence for embezzling more than $300,000 from Northern Kentucky University. For the last several weeks, I've poured through recently released evidence. I've talked with people connected to this scandal, and I even exchanged letters with the man who fooled so many for so long. This year, Northern Kentucky University made the decision to handle their investigation of Jennifer Hilvert internally. Hilvert was fired again by NKU in June. The I-team first reported on the allegations last Thursday. 4 days after our report, NKU officials met with the county prosecutor to talk about criminal charges. Northern Kentucky University says dance coach Jennifer Hilvert was caught embezzling $6,800. In Kentucky, that would qualify as a Class D felony, punishable by 1 to 5 years in prison. Although she was fired 5 months ago, a criminal investigation was not opened on Hilvert until this week. Campbell County Commonwealth Attorney Michelle Snodgrass told the I-team that she just learned about the allegations. So why was her office not notified sooner? No one at NKU is saying. We do know that University President Jeffrey Mearns was made aware of a potential issue early on with Jennifer Hilvert, but the school says Hilvert was fired by NKU without the president's knowledge. But during a news conference last month, the president appeared to deny any knowledge of any cases involving embezzlement other than athletic director Scott Eaton, who was arrested in 2013 for stealing more than $300,000 from the university.
Have there been any other incidents with any other campus employees?
Any other incidents?
Similar incidents of misappropriation of funds or any kind of embezzlement?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any other incidents since March of 2013 where an NKU employee used a procurement card to steal $310,000. No, I'm not aware of any similar incident.
Or any kind of misuse of any kind of funds?
I mean, you're asking a very broad question. You mean, is it possible that an employee has misused a procurement card for a $5 purchase? I guess that's possible. I'm not aware of any.
Okay, I'm referring to anything on a much larger scale, anything resembling.
And that's what I said. I'm not aware of you asked the question, am I aware of any similar incident? And my answer to that question is no, I'm not aware of any incident similar to the Scott Eaton matter.
Okay, that was October 24th. When we tried to reach President Mearns last week, we were told he was out of town. This week, he is not making himself available for questions. NKU is now referring questions to the prosecutor. You know, for the last 2 days, Mike Hoyt has really only been known as the former bartender who threatened to poison the drinks he served Speaker Boehner. Tonight, clues. Something was not right with the man who had access to John Boehner for 5.5 years.
They fired me. I had a bad attitude. Mike Hoyt turned to Facebook last fall after he lost his job bartending at the Wetherington Golf and Country Club. Third time I have put everything into a job. I'm used to it. I will be fine, cooling down and regrouping. I've gone back to writing. On October 28th, Hoyt posted a long 7,000-word blog titled, "Wetherington Country Club Fired Me for a Bad Attitude." Hoyt mentions the Boehners 5 times. He reprints an email he wrote to Mrs. Boehner that says, "If I had any intention of hurting Mr. Boehner, I could have poisoned his wine at Wetherington many, many times." The next day, Hoyt called 911.
I just want you to call my father and let him know I'm okay, and sorry I made mistakes.
Okay, and where's your father at? Or
everywhere.
I feel really bad for him. I think that he does need help.
Dawn Clifton says she's known Mike Hoyt for almost a decade.
I don't think that he's a threat. I don't think that I think he's like harmless, really. I think that he was just like devastated, and if he was accused of something, I could totally see him saying, like, I could have done this a million times. I never did. I never would have.
According to court documents, Hoyt told investigators he thought he was Jesus Christ, in Boehner the devil. He repeatedly made threats to kill the speaker, either by poison or gunshot. Dr. Steven Sterkowski says it's clear from the evidence Hoyt was delusional, but he says it's difficult to diagnose what he may have been suffering from.
It can occur in a wide variety of illnesses. So schizophrenia is the one people think of commonly, but bipolar disorder, depression, Alzheimer's disease. I mean, there's a whole bunch of brain illnesses that cause delusional thinking.
Tonight, Mike Hoyt is under evaluation at a federal facility in Massachusetts. We've tried to speak with his parents several times, including today. We've also reached out to Hoyt's attorney. No one is talking right now. Hoyt could be sentenced up to 30 years in prison for all those threats. Carol?
911, what's the address of the emergency?
I need an ambulance, please.
December 11th, Emily Olson came home from school, pulled out her dad's gun, and pointed it at her head.
My daughter shot herself.
Emily's suicide devastated the community. What would drive a 13-year-old to suicide?
She always had a smile on her face, and she never showed her emotions.
This is surveillance video from inside Fairfield Middle School, the day Emily took her life. A school resource officer reviewed the recording and told investigators he saw nothing out of the ordinary. 8 days after her death, Superintendent Paul Otten issued a statement to parents. The Fairfield Township Police Department conducted a thorough investigation and did not find any credible evidence that bullying was a factor in this tragedy. It seems there is an unjustified need to place blame for this horrendous event. But the I-Team uncovered a pile of evidence that proves the exact opposite, that bullying took a toll on Emily. The records show she was having a tough time at school. Emily's student file contains details of a fight in October, less than 2 months before her suicide. "We were just telling the people to stop messing with Emily Olson," one classmate wrote. Another said, "Last year in 6th grade, this girl was getting bullied like bad. It was awful last year, and people are still doing it this year." Emily's father, Mark, tried to warn the school. In a January 2014 email, he wrote, "Emily has become the target of bullying by a few girls. I have a bad feeling that if nothing is done, then this has the possibility to escalate into something worse." Perhaps the most devastating piece of evidence we uncovered, a fake sexually explicit Instagram account made to mock Emily. The account has since been taken down. Emails show Dad tried to warn the school about this, too. Just 10 days before her death, Emily sent this internet message to a friend. "People look at me like I'm a freak. You feel them judging you, staring at you, talking about you. And I've made up my mind. I want to die."
Immediately after her death, the Fairfield Township Police Department opened an investigation and then closed it 5 days later. After talking with school officials and students, detectives said they could find no concrete evidence of any bullying. However, Chief Matt Frucci admitted to the I-Team that no one in his department ever asked for or were provided with Emily's student file.
According to Fairfield Township Police, when a detective asked school officials if there was a history of bullying, the school said no.
Can we talk with you?
Not on camera.
We tried to get answers from Superintendent Otten before a school board meeting last week.
So there's some questions we have about the investigation.
You can turn that off. No, I'm not going to talk to you about it.
Okay,
And I don't need to give you a reason. I'm just not going to give it to you.
Are you happy with the way the investigation was at Fairfield Township? Sir, we're going to continue to ask questions.
That's great.
Otten later agreed to sit down with us away from the camera, behind closed doors, with City Attorney John Clemens present. Otten stood by his statement and said the district cooperated fully with police. The only reason they didn't release Emily's file, he said, is because police never asked for it. When we showed Otten the fake Instagram account, he said he had never seen it, despite Mark Olson's warnings to the school. And even though the school district's policy says all bullying incidents are reported immediately to the superintendent.
Why weren't these documents that were in her student file handed over to the police when they were there investigating?
We showed our evidence to Covington defense attorney Brad Fox, who has experience with cases involving bullying. Fox has serious concerns with how the school failed to release information to police.
Was there bullying? Was there a past with this student? Were there discipline problems? And if these are sitting in the file and they weren't handed over, that's a problem.
Emily did not leave a suicide note, but investigators did find messages on her phone that said goodbye to all of her friends. Now, of course, we wanted to speak with Emily's parents for this story. Mark Olson would only tell me that he's, quote, outraged demanding answers still to this day. He then referred me to his attorneys, who did not return our calls.
You wouldn't want to leave your kids in the car on a day like today, but police say last month one father did in the parking garage outside the Horseshoe Casino. It's just one example of a problem national advocates say is getting worse.
It's hard not to notice the fuzzy dice hanging in this silver Sebring. This is the car police say Dante Smith left his 6-year-old son inside of last month so that he could go inside the Horseshoe Casino and play blackjack. It was a particularly cold day with temperatures hovering in the single digits. Investigators said Smith left the engine running and the heat on for close to an hour.
Yeah, it was a dumb thing to do, and I was mad at him.
Belinda didn't want us to show her face. She's dated Smith for almost 2 years and says he would go to the casino 2 or 3 times a month whenever he had the cash.
Has that ever crossed your mind that maybe he has a gambling addiction?
I would say slightly. He could use a few classes. You know, he still needs some kind of help to help him get over that hurdle of wanting to do it.
Is it the symptom of an addiction or simply bad parenting? Either way, the group kidsincars.org says it's happening more and more. According to the group, last year there were 22 cases of kids left in cars outside casinos across the country. Half of the cases were from Indiana and Ohio. The I-team went through hundreds of police reports from the last 2 years and found more than a dozen examples of parents leaving children unattended. In Lawrenceburg, 2 parents were warned not to leave their 13-year-old daughter alone in the Hollywood Casino. Police said after the warning, the girl's father walked her to their car and left her there for an hour so that he could go back inside and gamble. The parents were arrested. The charges were later dropped. At the Hollywood Casino in Columbus, police arrested Scott Shue after they said he left his 5-year-old daughter and her friend in his car so he could play blackjack. And in Cincinnati, the I-team discovered a dozen cases of parents leaving children in a car or alone at Starbucks or Bobby's Burger Place. In most cases, these parents were given warnings and asked to leave the property.
Is it causing financial problems? Is it causing legal problems? Yes. Is it causing family problems? And those are the areas you look at.
Dr. Ronald Sachs is an addiction specialist. He says gambling shuts down the frontal lobe, the same area of our brain that we use for planning, worrying, and self-control.
For example, a guy who leaves his kid in the car, it's the frontal lobe that's going to worry about it. And almost all the addictive things make us not worry.
Belinda says one of the worst consequences from Dante Smith's arrest is that his 6-year-old son blames himself.
He said, if it wasn't for me, my dad wouldn't be in jail. I said, it's not your fault. It's your dad's fault. He's a grown-up. He knows what he did was wrong, and now he got in trouble.
Dante Smith was charged with child endangerment. He's been banned for life from the Horseshoe Casino. We're live tonight in Mount Adams. Jason Law, 9 on your side.